Vaynerchuk is a very accomplished business person. He grew his family's wine business from $3 million to $50 million. He had a blog, a wine blog, and became known as the wine guru. And he's written several books, which we will have outside and he will be signing them later. And he's also now running a company called VaynerMedia, which is a very successful company. He's working with a lot of Fortune 100 companies. And we're very excited to have him here, and he's going to be talking about culture and what it means in the work environment. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Gary to all of you. Thank you.
Morning. I, on the other hand, gave absolutely zero thought to what I was going to talk about today, last night, since I tend to go pretty improv. Given the intimacy of this room, I'm going to take advantage of it, which means, I think, given the time that we have allotted, and given the fact that content at some level is commoditized, meaning it's super easy for you to go to YouTube right now and search my last name and company culture and probably watch 8 to 15 hours worth of my thoughts on this. I think that I want to actually take this into a Q&A environment as quickly as possible, to then allow you to ask very specific things that matter. I mean, at some level, I think I can answer every single person's most important question that they would have possibly about any context they have on my career or the subject matter we're thinking about talking about here. So I'll spiel a little bit to not just mail it into Q&A, but the truth is I think that's the most valuable things of this world. I actually fundamentally believe the days of talks are 5 to 15 years away from being disrupted, that people actually know the person's spiel going in by consuming the content and then go right into Q&A, where I think that interaction is the value. You know, to me, company culture or culture in general is an interesting subject matter because, you know, it's probably the thing that comes most naturally to me besides sales. You know, as early in my career of selling lemonade or baseball cards or slinging anything that was laying around the house that I could sell to the neighbor, as quickly I was doing that at 4, 5, and 6 years old, I was equally by 5, 6, 7, and 8 years old, rounding up my friends and my sister and anybody that was around to be part of that machine, figuring out how to motivate them to do things that were for the collective. And what's interesting is, as I told those stories in my teenage years, in my early 20s, and then definitely once I started having some exposure to what I was doing and to audiences, something funny happened. You know, I started realizing that some people thought the story of me getting all my friends to work behind the lemonade stand all day was, you know, cynical, right? Like that it was a negative, that I tricked my friends into doing it. Or that, you know, when you build a real, you know, culture in a company, I think everybody here could attest and recognizes that it just depends on how you want to look at it. I mean, there's plenty of times that people look at charismatic leaders in businesses and they decide to look at the left side of the equation, which is that's cult leadership, all in the best interest of that person, and they're looking for disproportionate return at the expense of all the people that are within the organization. To me, I've really always thought about culture in the complete opposite, meaning the reason I think that I've been able, and I've grown two core businesses in my life. My family liquor store business, Wine Library, which I grew from 8 to 150 people in 3 years, and VaynerMedia, which I've grown from 30 to almost 500 people in the last 3 years, right? So when you're growing at that kind of length, and I'm not sure what everybody's careers are here, but if you've ever had an opportunity to be in a business that has gone to that much growth, you're not going to grow with structure. It's not going to be predicated on the proper review situation or the proper hiring system or all these other things that people like to talk about in HR or write in books or have young kids collect debt to teach them those processes that are completely and fundamentally commoditized and mean jack shit in the scheme of what actually is real in life, which is human behavior, human interaction, like what really happens, right? Like, who's ever read a handbook from an employee contract? I mean, like, I don't even, James, do we even have an employee handbook? We do, but I don't give a fuck about it, right? And I think that's the important part of this whole equation, right? Which is, culture is predicated on one thing. One. Like, if anybody cares about this subject matter in this room, there's only one move. It's real simple. Like, I can end this whole talk right now. It can be over now. There's only one thing that matters in culture. Intent. Nothing else. That's it. That's all that matters. What are my intentions? Because all of my behavior, whether it's out in front and very obvious or manipulated through hiding or scheming or whatever it is, however I execute my intent, black and white or gray, the intent is the part that matters. And the reason company culture comes so easy to me is somewhere along the line, I realized 49% of the value of a relationship is more than enough for me. That I'm talented enough, that I'm good enough, that I've got enough skills, that if we have a relationship, if Austin and I have a relationship, if he gives me 49% of it, the money, the work, the emotion, the opportunities, 49% of the collective, holistic value of the relationship, I'm good. And so then I spend all my time making sure I give him 51 for two reasons. One, he's gonna like the way that tastes. Two, it's leverage. It's leverage. In a world where so few want to have that kind of relationship, in a world where so many default into what's in it for me, and even scarier, what's in it for me in the next 5 minutes? What's in it for me this next year? What's in it for me in the short term, in a world where unless you die, the game continues to play, right? And so I just think the whole world looks at culture backwards. I think people think it's tactics. I think people get romantic about having HR skills and want to deploy systems, and it's all commoditized. And that's why there are so few companies that are built for success within their culture. And it's why, if you really look at it, the companies that succeed around culture, pro and con, by the way, so succeed or fail on culture, are often very predicated based on a singular leader. Her, him, how they rolled. And so I actually think this is a stunningly easy subject matter that just doesn't come very easy to most people. And that's it. That's what I got. Thank you. but like, you know what's funny? Like, I'm gonna now layer on top of that for the sake of time, for the sake of trying to provide value. But the truth is, it's really that simple. Like, there's just nothing else. Like, that's why I'll always win in culture. I'll always build big companies. You know why? Because I'm not worried about the next day. I'm not worried about next month's cash flow. I'm worried about the long game. I'm playing forever. It's forever. It's for this business. It's for the next business. It's for the future business. It's I did right by Greg. He goes on to another business. Somebody sees me in a public stage where I curse a bunch. They come back. They're like, that guy's a douche. He's got a huge ego. Greg goes, you know what? Let me tell you a story about that dude. You know, blah, 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 blah. Oh, really? Blah, 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 blah. My friends, the truth is undefeated. Like the truth is undefeated. The truth can be muted for a year. The truth can be muted for a decade, but the truth is undefeated. And the more that people recognize that, the more you'll win. And the funny thing with culture is the thing that most people don't spend enough time on, that I spend an outrageous amount of time on, is creating, not, trust is very important, but believe it or not, it's actually siphoning out fear, right? So like the thing that I spend the most time on is siphoning fear out of the building, right? Like what's fun about being a leader is that I think everybody in my building's got a sense, and some have a real big sense, some have an inclining, but I think everybody understands that like, I like that I'm the last line of defense. I want all the pressure on my shoulders. I demand to take the last shot of the game, right? I need that. That's what makes me tick. And what I do with that, because I eat pressure, because I love pressure, because I laugh at pressure, because what worked for me is that I just recognize what business pressure means in the scheme of actual life, right? It is my life, but If somebody called me right now and told me my mom was dying, I wouldn't give a fuck about this talk or my profit margin at VaynerMedia, right? And so when you're able to compartmentalize and put things into theory and understand what the real value is, and you're able to deploy that on your culture and make people realize they're not gonna get fired if they lose an account. They're not gonna get fired if they mispack the wine shipment. They're not gonna get fired for those things. And meanwhile, so many leaders, even people in this room, try to manage and win on fear. And fear is the quickest way to lose. It's a short-term play. You have a question? Yeah, go ahead. I'll repeat it. And actually, the acoustics are good here.
Why is it that still happens? Managers are out there still managing problems, not relationships, and still drive with fear in the way that people did in the 1920s, where people wouldn't improve on their job because people, the boss would say, hey, you could have done it better, before, you're fired. And management has evolved so much, but it's still out there.
Did everybody hear that question?
Yes.
For the most part? Because I think most people suck at emotional intelligence. Because it's a skill. Because like being a good manager is a skill. It's like fucking playing hockey. You don't just automatically be good at it. Like I can't skate for shit, right? Like I'm pissed, right? Because there's all these nice skating things in New York. I can take my kids. I can't skate for dick. I'm not doing it, right? So like I can't do it. In the same way that 90% of the people in my organization are tapped out at some basic level of management. Because they themselves, the reason I'm such a good manager is because I believe in myself and have so much self-esteem and have had a history of having success that I'm not scared for somebody to be better than me. People suppress because they don't want somebody to jump over them. They play in the middle, right? They're gonna play because Jason, they're doing what's in their best interest, not in the company's best interest. And I believe that that's the company's fault. I believe that if VaynerMedia has managers that suppress, that's my fault. That because everything's my fault, that I need to weed that person out. And I try, and we do it, and we do it in a good way. And I think I pound this deep. I don't even know what we do almost. like I really want everybody to understand it for a minute. I know what we do, obviously. I laid it out, but I don't, because it's not what matters. That's all, I always tell my people, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And listen, it hurts people's feelings because it's the only thing they care about. It's like, what are you talking about? It doesn't matter. It's my life. I'm like, well, your fucking life doesn't matter because this doesn't fucking matter, right? This doesn't matter. So the reason I think people still do that is because I think there's a lot of B and C and D players in the world. And I think this is why culture's so interesting, because I love B, C, and D players. Because there's A players and B players and D players and Z players. That's just life. That's just life. I want to create a culture where all those people can win. Do you know how envious I am of people that want to make $110,000 a year and work 9 to 6 and have their weekends and take 4.5 vacations and literally go to sleep at night and not worry about anything but their inner 4 to 5 things that they have to worry about, real things. The 99% of 97%, paying rent, saving for college. I have some envy for that, because the truth is, as you start laddering up, and if you're wired the way I am, I'm not only worried about my own ambition, I'm worried about 800 people's ambitions, because I've promised them that I'm gonna be big enough to make all their dreams come true, right? And then, because of the way I'm wired, if somebody loses a child in a miscarriage, or if mother dies, or best friend dies in a car accident, I worry about that too, and it just compounds. I tell my people that wanna grow, I'm like, cool, you've got all the skills, but this is about wartime generals. My friends, the far majority of people are peacetime generals. Meaning, when shit's good, it's good, right? This is good, everything's good, it's good. It's fucking good, right? I'm interested in wartime generals. Right now it's real good. I don't know if you've looked, but life's good. Things have been good, right? We had some shit fall down in the financial sector in 2008 or 9, but it's good. There's plenty of bad, and I follow all politics, but I look at data. American problems are 1% problems. The fact that you woke up one day and you ended up in America, you fucking won. I want to put perspective to everybody here. People cry about this, or you won. Go get some perspective. Go look at other places. Go understand what's happening. You want some real perspective? Go to Mississippi. How about perspective within New York culture to the rest? How about outside of New York, LA, and San Francisco, go look at America? You've won. And so people complain about stuff, and things are real good, and what I'm looking for is wartime jellies. The amount of startups that I've invested in that raise $10 million and have a party for raising money. You have a party for raising debt or diluting yourself in your business. This is how broken shit is right now. I'm glad there's some old timers in here like me. Like, you have a party to dilute your equity, right? And then what happens is things are good. You have $10 million in the bank. It doesn't matter that you're not making any money. It doesn't matter that you don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're only burning $400,000 a month, and so you got time. And then shit hits the fan, and then everybody panics, and everybody quits, and then you're spending all your time trying to raise more money. So we have a very interesting time right now, which creates the culture. Culture, my friends, is predicated on one thing: the leader. The leader. That's where it comes from. That's what it is. Every one of you, no matter what you do now, if you work somewhere, I can promise you your entire culture is predicated on the person that is making the decisions. That's it. And yes, sir.
What gets you fired from VaynerMedia?
What gets you fired from VaynerMedia? That's a really good question. So there's a couple things that happen at VaynerMedia that are interesting to me. So there's a variety of reasons. Obviously, there's the first thing that can get you fired, which is, something insane. You've got to go really, like stabbing somebody in the hall. So that would get you fired. The number one thing that comes to mind is not having the ability to play nice with the other boys and girls. That's number one, right? If you just are not liked, if people just fundamentally don't want to work with you, based on two things. One, you're just not liked, you're manipulative, you're political, you're undermining, you can't work there. Number two, you just might suck, right? Like if you're not liked, you'll get fired within, 6 months after you walk in. If you suck, you just suck. Like I don't know, you forget things, you don't show up to meetings, you suck. That probably gets you fired within a year, right? So the hard skills buys you a lot more time than the soft skills. The other thing that gets you fired at VaynerMedia, one of the only other, by the way, those are the two, and there's one sneaky one: lack of self-awareness. If you think you're a creative director, but you're a designer, somewhere that's gonna be a problem, right? Because somewhere you're gonna be looking for something, and we're not gonna be able to give it to you because we're looking to play on meritocracy, and it's nice that you've been here for 4 years, but you're just not good enough to do this thing. And what happens is, as you can imagine, eventually that corrodes and makes you unhappy, and then you don't play nice with the other boys and girls, so it leads it down the rabbit hole. And we try to get in front of that and get pretty upfront with people like, hey, it is, I and a small group of people, we're the judge and jury of VaynerMedia. We have decided this is probably your skill level at this point, 2-3 years into your career. We've got a good read. You need to know that, because if you think you're X, Y, and Z, and by the way, we're hot as shit. You can probably go get X, Y, and Z in a lot of places because you were this here and we're hot in the game right now. You may want to do that, because if we don't provide what you want, we think that ultimately that's going to corrode, and then you're going to start acting in a different way, which is then going to lead for you not to be here. So those are the things that stand out. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned something really interesting about making B, C, and D players successful.
Yeah.
Like, the first question is, actively in an interview, do you identify the person as a B, C, or D player and decide, yes, we're going to hire them? And then two, how do you do that? How do you make them successful?
So I do. When I interview people, I definitely quantify them in my head, but I'm also a human and I'm flawed. I mean, I hired this one girl 2.5 years ago, and I was like, this woman is gonna change my business. She's gonna literally come in and we were really raw at this point. We're like 30 people, 35 people. We had like 4 people that ever worked in an agency, So she was a strategist. She's been in the industry for 5 years. I'm like, best 2 meetings. I'm like, this girl is gonna dominate. She's gonna change my business. She changed my business. She's the first employee I've ever had in my life that literally I had to fire by lunchtime of her first day. You just heard, it takes me 6 months before I can figure out if I want to fire you for all the core emotional flaws that matter most to me. And literally, I'd never seen a human being be able to ruin 9 people's lives in 3 hours as quickly as this girl. So, yes, I do, but I'm not always right. People move, behave, you start gaining context. People have a good first year, they're maybe an A. Bad, it moves. But the way it works is, it's insane to think that you're hiring only A players. There's no such, if you said your company hires only A players, that means that nobody reports to anybody in your company, that you're 100% flat. And if you're not, then you don't have that. Because I'm an A player and I'd never fucking work for anybody in my life, right? And then the only other thing an A player could look like is only being willing to report to one other person, right? So if your company has anything that looks like more than one person and then all flat, anybody in tier 3, not A. And I mean that. And what I mean by that is they may become A, but of that moment, they're not. And so what you have to do is create a culture that allows people to move into those places, at least in the one man's point of view of how he defines A and B, right? And so, it's like a freshman superstar basketball player, does he start from day one? Maybe, but if he doesn't, then he's not a starting 5 player, then he's not an A, right? And though maybe he has the talent, you need to groom and practice to make that actually happen. And so, the thing that I spend all my time on is not caring that we have a system to make this manufacture. I don't believe in that. I believe on an individual basis, right? Rob. I need to know Rob, and I start backwards. What the fuck does Rob care about? Money? Right? Notoriety? Right? Work-life balance? Does Rob really love golfing at 3 p.m. on Fridays? Does Rob, he does? Awesome. Does Rob, this one I think you'll say no to, but if you say yes, I'm gonna be pumped. Does Rob really want to go to Coachella? What does Rob want? And what does Rob want right now as a 24-year-old that's willing to live in a box with 6 other people, right? And willing to make $40K but drink $12 juices and take Uber? Like, people are different. And the truth is, I don't give a fuck. I'm not looking to impose you should want to buy the New York Jets will on anyone, right? That's the nice thing about being an anomaly. You recognize that you can't impose your way on everybody else, which is the #1 mistake that everybody does in management and culture. I'm like this, be like me. What are you? Let me figure out how to make it the best version of you. All strengths, no weaknesses. Refine weaknesses, refine them so they don't kill you, but quadruple down on strengths. It's the quickest path to success. So what we try to do is we try to understand people on an individual basis. I spend an hour and a half, 2-3 hours a week on just laying in bed and watching every single one of my employees' Instagram and Twitter accounts to understand their psychology, to understand what they care about.
So you're hiring on potential, is that what I'm hearing?
No, I'm just hiring. What I'm doing is I'm firing and I'm elevating smart. People are crippled by the hire. The hire's jack shit. The hire's a crapshoot. Nobody's good at it. And everybody's good at it. Got it? What I'm doing is I'm counterpunching. I'm reacting. I'm playing chess. So we're hiring. We're trying the best we can. You do what you can. You find people that are like-minded within your organization, you instill them into that system, right? I try to find the other people that are good at EQ and I instill them in that system. But I then protect them and say, don't worry, because they're like, I understand. The amount of people walk around VaynerMedia like, I understand the Vayner culture. It's a pride thing, it's an important thing. But yes and no, they've got their definition of it. It means something different to everybody, right? And so it's not, we don't hire on potential, we just hire, and then we listen, and we watch, and then adjust. That's how you go fast. Let's go here, and then we'll go here.
Hey Gary, so awesome shit so far, seriously, thank you for the value. I just want to ask a question. So I've noticed that, I watch a lot of your videos, and I know you mentioned this a lot, the social dynamics in your company is definitely not traditional, and I'm a huge believer in creating, because a lot of these companies have this cubicles and all this crap where they keep people apart. What would you recommend to create social dynamics in a sense where people can feel like they're actually friends with their coworkers, communicate with them, be open? Is it maybe how you set up the desk? I noticed there's no walls there.
It's a tact. You're going into tactic category.
Oh, okay.
Let me explain.
Sure.
There's a lot of people at VaynerMedia that struggle with the way we have it. You think it's cool. I clearly think it's cool.
So I mean, how would you recommend then like building a culture where people could like be excited to go to work and like actually feel like their ideas can be listened to and like open, you know what I mean? Because obviously not everybody's ideas, especially in wartime, you can't be like, oh, let's take our ideas, but like, you know, in general, so they could feel like their input matters and that they're excited to go there, you know?
It has nothing to do with the clothes you wear or the open seats or anything of that nature. If you think about what you asked me, you know, the best way to make people feel like their ideas matter is by making their ideas matter. Whether they wear a suit and tie in a cubicle, or whether they sit with a hoodie in an open desk. Got it? So like that's the game, right? And like that's what's comfortable to me. As a matter of fact, I have a major problem at VaynerMedia right now. We used to be on 2 floors, and now we've gone to 3. So we've been able to make it far less congested in the organization. I'm crippled by that. I hate it. It's gotten too quiet. Like I want chaos. Like I loved when we had 2 floors, but everybody else hated it. We had a day where we had 200 employees home sick because, I don't know, if you sit on top of each other during the winter, you're gonna pass germs, right? Like I want garbage all over the place. Like I literally want banana peels on the floor as I walk to my office. Like literally, no joke. I love that. I love the action. I want people bumping into each other. I want people spilling fucking water on their laptop and like having to get it replaced for $800. It's the culture, right? I like that. But a lot of people don't. And a lot of people come to VaynerMedia and really struggle because they don't have their private space, they don't have their cubicle. They also come from cultures where they just came where no employee talks to each other, and my happy people are fucking bothering them by being too happy, and what the fuck, and I don't actually believe they're really happy. But wait a minute, maybe they are happy. What the fuck is this place, right? So like, it's like this whole thing. And so, but here's the best part, and this is what every leader in here should do. I don't care. I don't care if you come in and you say, this is a circus, I'm out of here. Perfect. Then the machine is spitting out the organs that don't deserve to be a part of it, because I just don't know any other way. And the ultimate thing that is gonna drive our success is for me to be happy. I'm not kidding. Like, the reason we don't have a lot of confrontation in politics is because I'm suffocated by negativity. I completely break down. I hate confrontation. Like, it doesn't seem that way because when I'm in the debate of like what I care about, I'll confront, but in real life, what actually matters, day to day, I hate it. Like, and so I kill it. The second 2 people are arguing, I get in there. The amount of HR, I spend so much time on HR. And I say because it's a lot of time, but not because it's the only thing I like, right? And it's what drives. I happen to know what we're doing. I spend myself on the 2 things that matter. I don't play in the middle. I spend myself on the vision. What's the strategic course of the company? Where's the opportunity? Where's the white space? And go sell some business because money matters, right? And then I spend all my time on the individual people. And one by one, I think it's Carol's birthday tomorrow. What should we do? We had an open vacation policy. Open. As many days as you want. Pretty good, right? Solid gig. Some fuckers really took advantage of it. But a lot of people didn't. And back to the hiring question, right? After 2 years of watching it, I realized, shit, some people are crippled by this open of a system. And they've only taken 3 days in 2 years, and they're working a lot. So we adjusted, and we created open vacation policy with 3 weeks mandatory vacation time, right? And so I'm adjusting. Open vacation policy seemed really right, you know? But it's really right for people that understand and have natural in their gut meritocracy and capitalism at their core. Other people don't, and that's okay. I don't disrespect that. It's my job to fix it, and so we did. Let's go here.
So my day job?
Let me get you this, Dana, because you're just a little far from everyone.
So my day job is IT.
Yep.
And all day long I work with people who are coming in just complaining about stuff that's not working. We have these tickets and I'm not actually building relationships with these people. I don't even have time to be empathetic. I'm just trying to fix whatever's broken, problem solve, and move on to the next thing. And even when I get home, my wife will tell me her day, and I'll be like, oh, you should do this and this. And she's like, whoa, I didn't want you to problem solve. I just wanted you to listen, right?
Yeah.
And so how do I bridge that gap to be a person that builds relationships with people? They get to know, they trust me, and I fix their problems, but also
it's a great question.
I'm not just the guy who takes care of it when
you're giving me very little context. And holding like no, thank you. But I'll say some stuff and you can jump in, which is why I said it. By nature, your game is set up for you to be on the defense.
Absolutely.
And so, even when I'm supposed to be on the defense, like I have a call today of a client that like is debating to fire us because they're upset about some stuff. Literally, the second that call comes, I'm on instant offense. That person may not say a word on the call. And so that's my recommendation to you. Meaning, it's on you to recognize that if you're fixing 46 problems a day, you think you're being efficient. I think you're being inefficient, meaning I think you should fix 37 problems a day and take the time of the other 9 problems to go on the offense.
How would I do that?
By walking up to Ryan in the office and be like, hey, Ryan, let's go get a coffee.
Okay.
He'd be like, what? He'd be like, take a fucking coffee. All right, go get a coffee. He'd be like, where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah.
By building relationships.
Right.
Like, how do you build relationships? Easy. You build them.
Yeah.
You know, you go and you talk to, and by the way, some people are introverted and they can't take the advice I gave. And that's fine. I don't sense that in 2 seconds already that that's your problem.
No.
So stop doing 47 fucking tickets and do 39 and fucking do the other part.
That's perfect. No, that's exactly it.
It's what it is though, right?
No.
Because if you do, like, and Ryan, unfortunately for me in this scenario, is wearing a fucking white shirt. But if he was wearing a Seattle Seahawks t-shirt, then he's a piece of cake because he's projecting what he cares about.
Right.
Right? And so, like, one way to scale it, how many employees are we talking about?
And we have probably like maybe 1,500 that are in the group that I'm responsible for.
Yep.
But I handle remote offices. Basically, I do it at a hospital, and there are remote doctors' offices that are connected. So I take care of those doctors' offices. I go there, the nurses, what's the problem? And so I would say I interact with probably, maybe 100 people a week, but
You're responsible for 1,500.
our group is,
Yep.
yeah, and I'm,
You're responsible how many? 100 within that 1,500,
yeah.
and they're all remote.
yeah, they're all over the place. I travel around wherever city,
Yeah.
and that's, I mean,
That's
what
it.
you said makes sense. If we take 5 minutes,
If you're
I have
traveling,
coffee-
are you traveling and like literally then going home? Like these are like Minnesota, like not New
No,
York.
no, all around New York, New Jersey, Connecticut.
Oh,
and
the car?
Yeah,
Well, then
it's
fuck
Virginia.
you, dude. Go do it.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I agree.
like go drive
Yeah.
and like do it.
Yeah.
Like allocate an extra hour to every single trip you're taking,
Sure.
and 5-minute meetings, 10-minute meetings. Like the second. So here's the craziest thing of what I'm telling you to do, is I don't think people recognize how scalable the advice is that I'm giving you. Let me explain. Intent. Let's go back to it. If people know that you went to that hospital and you took people out for a drink, if you followed all those nurses or people that you want to build a relationship with on Facebook and knew it was their birthday and bought some cockamania $9 flowers on the way there and gave it to them, happy birthday, if you actually had the intent to have a relationship, it scales. Because when you give flowers to Sandy, well then Sally and Julie and Susan and Rick and Don all know you did. And so what you did in one action is you actually scaled to 5 to 10 people. Got it?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. You can pass it to Tommy and then we'll get it over there.
Hey Gary, big fan.
Thanks,
What do you
brother.
think about what's going on with Zappos right now, with that whole culture? Do you think it'll work?
I think Zappos is super interesting. I love Tony Hsieh with all my heart. He's a good friend. I think he's got a lot of the right intent. I think for me, and everyone's different, I think he goes for tactics too much. As you guys can all tell, I'm just intent. Like, and I think he's very romanticized by, I'm gonna create a system called the, hey, if you work here for 6 months, we're gonna offer you $2,000 and you'll leave. He's tacting he's got a mix of the two philosophies. I think most companies are all tactics, no heart. And I think he's, 70 heart, 30 tactics. And this is a new big tactic, right? Like flat. Not for me. I think the current tactic, and I've only headline read, and Tommy helped me here, but like nobody's got a boss, right? Like flat.
Shit.
So I don't know. So this is how I think about privacy. You know how we're like, fuck the government, we need to know everything? If we knew everything, we'd all be finished. Like, there's a couple of things here and there. Like, I have an unbelievable culture. I don't think it's in my best interest for every employee to know what every single person makes. I just don't think it's gonna work. It's not their fault, it's just human behavior. We can't help it. And plus, everybody's compensated in different ways, but people look at things linear. You're gonna look and be like, why the fuck does Austin, who does the same thing as me, make $5,000 more? There's 2 reasons, Tommy. First of all, he's fucking better than you. Number 2, he kind of also works a lot harder than you. Number 3 is, I've talked to him about his life, and he actually wants to roll with me for 15 years, and I believe him, and you're just fucking looking at fucking LinkedIn to see what your next gig is. That's why, dick. Got it? And so I think that there's a lot of that people don't want to hear. We're linear. And so, again, my answer is, first of all, I don't know everything I headline read. That's why I knew a little bit about it. Number 2, I think it's great in thesis, right? Everybody's flat. Right now, I love managing my company because most of my most senior people are all flat reporting to me on the account side, which is working for me for now because I'm touching all of them and I'm teaching them, and then I'll decide, but it's not forever. I'm a big believer that most stuff is actually right. I'm not one of these like new age guys of like, everything that's been done forever is broken. I think a lot of stuff is right. I just think intent is the part that we're just never focusing on the religion. We're always focusing on the church, right? The church needs a new bell. Your church's fucked because the leader of the church sucks, not because of the bell. Got it? Cool. Pass it.
Okay.
Oh, awesome.
All right, so you're probably just going to say intent again, and you've touched on this before, but you talked a lot about how you work 19 hours a day for
Yes.
so many years.
Yes.
How do you lead with that kind of aggression and devotion to your thing and not have it be some sort of social shaming bullshit that people get a sense of and then say, okay, I'm either going to get burned by this culture or now I have to sit
Great
around the
question.
office for 15 hours a day and accomplishing 2 handfuls
Yeah.
of jack shit, and,
Yeah.
but still, like,
It's a great question. First of all, there's a level of social shaming that I want to happen. And I'm not joking. Like part of our, like I'd like to be a working hard culture. Like here's a good example. New York VaynerMedia works harder than San Francisco and LA VaynerMedia because I'm there. And so social shaming is happening. It's not intent, it's almost the reverse. I actually don't think about it at all. Meaning, the market is the market, right? I'll have employees that can really control how they feel about me and how I roll and have enough self-awareness to know what they want in their lives and recognize what they are in the cog in the machine. And so back to, it was actually a different answer where I was like, I just have to reverse engineer you. You know, I'm actually gonna talk to you. Like you and I are actually gonna sit in my office and I'm gonna get a sense of you and you're gonna say, I wanna be like you. Great, Daniel. You have to work 19 hours a day, have talent, but you may not say that. And if you don't, and if you're like, hey, like, you know, I'm the kind of guy that, you know, or right now that's what you say. And then I'll say, cool, man, but what's gonna happen when you fall in love? And cool, man, what happens when something bad in your life happens? And cool, man, what happens when you make 150K? Are you gonna be de-incentivized? Like, and you say, I don't know, or maybe you say you know. I was super self-aware at 24. Some people weren't. Like, I don't know based on your age if you're gonna have that. We're gonna have a conversation, right? And so after that conversation, you're gonna realize I have zero interest in you being like me, right? And then that's it, then it's dead. And then either you're gonna hear me in that meeting and have that ability, or you're not, and you're just gonna go walk back out and watch some keynote I said and say 19 hours a day, and you're so linear, you're like 19 hours a day. And then if that's the case, you're probably not gonna win with me anyway, and you'll just get weeded out.
so a lot of it has to do with the honesty of the employee, and if they're not honest with you up front in the beginning, then it's a net loss anyway.
Of course, I can't help you if I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And the quickest way for you not to know what you're talking about is for you not to know what you're talking about, right? Like, you just don't know yourself yet. But I have massive empathy. I think we're all learning ourselves, no matter how young or old we are. We constantly are learning things about me. I mean, for me, I'm gonna win big because I'm just that EQ'd out. I'm just that The reason I was such a bad student was because I knew. And this was not entrepreneur Web 2.0 world. This was pre-internet. You're a fucking loser, kid. You get F's and D's. You're gonna die in the world. You can't win. You're dead. You suck. And I just said, you're wrong, because I knew who I was. So there's that extreme, and then there's people that are, I mean, I have employees that are so lost in outer space and have no self-awareness or empathy that it literally, like, I'm confused how they are even still alive. Yep, they're out there. Let's go this gentleman over here.
Hi, I'm Glenn. Thank you so much. So my question is, I know you have young people working in your company. So what's the profile and what are the qualities of young people that grow the fastest and then become really big producers for your company? Thank you.
That's a great question. God, there's a lot of different variables. some people are winning on humility, and right, some people are winning on ego. Some people are winning on just raw talent. I think the one thing that has been pretty consistent is raw talent, right? If you're just good, you're fast, you get your reports done, everything you've done is right, like you listen, you like watch my show and then heard me say something and then apply it to work while 89% of the other companies doesn't even watch. Like it's just, like I think it's pretty interesting. I don't think there's one set thing. It's either, but I think, because I want to answer your question, I think it breaks down into a couple things. Number one, pure talent. You're just smarter and more organized and faster than your contemporaries, and we recognize it very quickly. The whole machine's built to recognize it. Number two, I just like the chip you have on your shoulder, and I think you've got something, and it's gonna elevate you. Now the problem is, a lot of people know that about me when they come into the company, so they fake it. So they come in and fake being hungry or an ego, and then they get exposed. Like, as a matter of fact, I would say the hardest core fans that have come into VaynerMedia have been the ones that have been the least successful, because they're too diluted by my message, and they start trying to be what they think I like versus what they are. So I think the net answer to your question is the people that are most self-aware. Because if you're self-aware, you start betting on your strengths, and you move quickly. But there's a lot of different versions. A couple people have won on just being the nicest. I like nice, so I elevate that. And that has a ceiling, right? Niceness versus skill. Like, it all has different ceilings, but at VaynerMedia, niceness and culture player has a very high ceiling. In 90%, 95, 99% of businesses, it doesn't. But that's a really important part of the ecosystem at my company. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Let's go over here to this gentleman.
Hey Gary, I do social media at EA Sports,
Awesome.
a fairly large company,
Yeah,
Electronic Arts to be exact. And something we obviously struggle with is transparency.
Yeah.
People tend to work in silos.
Yeah.
And it's important for me, I need to know what the media buying team is planning, what the influencer marketing team is planning, what the web content team is planning.
Because you're the closest to the end consumer, and without that context, you're playing without all the knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We've
okay.
tried everything between distribution lists, even Facebook groups, weekly calls, and it just seems to not work when people get in their zone. So
Yeah.
do you have any suggestions how you guys deal with it?
We're not great at either. Humans are inefficient, right? So like, we have people doing the same thing. And I'm not gonna stand up here, like, we've been talking a lot about EQ, shit that I got down, but this one, it's a problem. What I will tell you is there is a fix that really works for us when it matters to me as much as I wish EA cared about social, which is when EA figures out that social just means the current state of the internet. It's really easy for companies to bet against social media. It's really hard for people to bet against the internet. And so when people recognize that social is actually just a word we use to talk about the current, do you know what happens when you add up the amount of time people spend on social networks versus, everything else on the internet, how scary, big, and important it is? So I try to change the context of the conversation by the picture I just painted for you and everybody else. When that happens, what will happen is, my belief is that you, that position, that department, is gonna sit higher up the funnel, right? If you think about it, once people understood PR mattered, the PR person internally moved up the ladder, right? Like, PR started way low and eventually is one of the 6 lieutenants sitting in an organization. That's gonna happen in social, because you're eating up PR. You are all that. So I think what happens is when you sit at the top, then you really have a chance to know a lot more, because right now you're required to get what falls down versus being there. All of a sudden, if you had 6 more people in every meeting coming out of there, then you still have an efficiency on how good are they at notes, whether they forget, but you get a hell of a lot better. So it's 2 things. It's recognizing that you're inefficient. At some level, I'll go a little zen on you. At some level, you need to become, less crippled by that notion and know it's just a reality, and then just go on the offense of the information you do have. As long as you're not being judged of like, what the hell, like, you're like, what do you mean, what the hell? I didn't even know that was going on. Nobody told me. So as long as there's a fair judgment within the organization, I think a lot of people get very romantic about what they do. I'm important, we're important, especially social, because we grew up from the 0 spot. We're important. I would let that go by, as long as you're not being dinged on something because you weren't given the information, then you just work off the information you have.
Right, yeah. Fighting a good fight.
Yeah, it's what it is. I mean, look, I always tell people, like, being the bigger man and woman in every situation is always the right move. Like, it's just gonna always work for you. Being the bigger person will always, if you're capable, if you have the stomach to be the bigger person, you do it every time for the rest of your life. It's just you will always win. You will always win. And I think a lot of people, like myself, who always want to do that, go through periods of time where they're like, am I a pushover? Like, I'm just pissed at this. It's not. You're so much stronger. You're not a pushover. You're much stronger. It's the other people that are pushovers. You know?
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Person behind you.
Hey Gary, quick question for you about management. And you were mentioning about being an A player, but as you grow your group, it becomes bigger.
Yes.
You rely on a lot more people.
Yes.
From a control standpoint,
yes.
If you are an A player,
yes.
and you feel like you know, and,
yes.
and you might know better than some of the people below you, or
yes.
and you don't. How do you find the times where you stay out of it, or you need to get involved when things are good or bad?
There's a lot of this is a very layered question. So a couple things. Number one, back to the question that the guy just asked. The first thing you have to understand, I've talked a little bit about this, I know there's some hardcore fans in here, you've seen me pound this one lately, which is, delegation it's about ego. I don't think people understand that delegation is based on ego. You think you're the best at this thing. Like, people play this so much. So for example, A player, here's something you might find interesting. It's insane how much I interact with my top brass for the first 6 months that they're at VaynerMedia. I almost don't even talk to them. These are literally the people that are running the company. Because I'm building context on who they are. If I micromanage them and I put them into a mold, well then I didn't have any chance to understand who they actually are, right? So one thing I would say as an A player managing a bigger and bigger team is you have to recognize the value of letting them breathe. I have a big advantage. I may not be the right person to give you the best advice here. Let me explain why. I do crazy ass shit, meaning I'm willing to lose clients. I'm willing to lose big chunks of business by not getting involved to teach all those people that I am better than they are. And it's a weird thing to say. You can look at it very cynically. But if you're gonna play the game out, you wanna teach people their strengths and weaknesses. When I'm back channeling a client, like I was last night to 2 o'clock in the morning, which is the real reason we're gonna grow our business, if the person that's running my business a step below me goes and does a presentation and sells it and thinks he won that business 100%, we have a disconnect, right? And so sometimes I stay so out of it and actually let the thing die so that it builds context. Not that I want to bring humility to them, it's I want them to learn. That's how you learn. So I let things, you may not be, if you're in upper management, that might be a dangerous spot, right? Like if you're ultimately in charge of this and your team's good and you let it die, well, if you have 2 or 3 people above you, you're in trouble. For me, I don't have that problem. Like I look myself in the mirror and be like, that was ballsy, and I move on, right? And so that's one thing I do, whether that works for you or doesn't, I don't know. And the other thing I do is if I'm gonna jump in, I'm gonna jump in at 11:59:59, where there's no debate that me jumping in saves the situation, right? So I'm playing chicken. Like the longer you can hold out, but that comes back to a great question earlier about work ethic. Because if I'm truly willing to work for 37 straight hours, I can go much further. A lot of people jump in because they're going on vacation in a week and they want to fix it on their timeline, and now they're jumping in 2 weeks early. Now they've undermined the person they've managed because they came in 2 weeks early. That person didn't get a chance to really show it. They were just about to get it there. Now there's that weird feeling between the two of them, right? And I see the way you're reacting. So by being a leader, you need to take that responsibility and try to push it. And so for me, I'm always, at any time, except for Sundays for 4 hours during the fall, willing to jump into anything and fix it. And so I use that in definitely play chicken and jump in as late as humanly possible, because the later you wait, the more your team knows that it was in trouble, and that's an important variable. Way too many people jump in at second or third base. Way too many people are micromanagers. Way too many people want to use, I've had some executives that jump in at second base and say, all right, I'm gonna come in and fix this all up. It's just a power move to suppress everybody underneath them. I hate that shit. I fucking really hate it. Sorry.
Thanks.
Hate it. Yeah. Let's go to the gentleman back there. And since you're right there, let's head to him after. We'll go to this gentleman right now.
Thank you. Gary, thanks first off for choosing my question on episode 19 of the Ask Gary Vee show.
Nice,
I
man.
appreciate it.
Very cool. No worries.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Oh, I have an idea, actually, based on that. India, I think we should make t-shirts where people can make the t-shirt that says, my question was answered on episode blank. Cool.
That would
Right,
be
go ahead, man.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the new Facebook Instant articles that they've pushed.
Yes. So, and you might have watched 2 episodes ago, or you might be backed up, where they asked me that, India asked me that to answer.
Caught up on
I just
it.
haven't played with it yet, and I still haven't played with it 48 hours later.
Then a quick question.
But I can answer it in a different way.
Oh, okay.
Because I love being, as you know, I love being a practitioner. I like to talk about shit I know, but theoretically, I know exactly what's going on at a higher level, which is Facebook's trying to become the publisher of the world. And they're gonna get it's gonna be really interesting because they're getting dangerously close, because the New York Times is publishing directly on Facebook. That's interesting. Because what nobody understands is the person that is closest to the end consumer always wins. And when you're the paper, and you deliver the paper to the person, and that's where they consume their news, New York Times, they win. But when everybody's consuming in a phone and through a vehicle, passed on by people's word of mouth, I mean, social media's been around forever. You had that, older, weird relative that ripped shit out of the newspaper and then fucking sent it to you in the mail, right? And so now you just hit a button and do the same thing, but to everybody that cares about you. And so I think Facebook is the single, Google's doing the most interesting, pie in the sky stuff, the balloon in the air, self-driving cars. Google's playing at the highest level. Elon Musk is super interesting. But for the things that I care about, like communication and psychology and business, Facebook's the most interesting company. They're real close. If they would have been able to buy Snapchat for $3 billion, when everybody laughed at them for that offer, if they would have been able to pull that off, they would be, right now I would say they'd be unstoppable in a 5-year window in my eyes, meaning I wouldn't see anything that can hurt them. Snapchat's the only thing that can right now. Yeah, really, because if Snapchat has the attention of every 19-year-old in America and under, which, by the way, Greg, they do, that is, if everybody ages up with it, the product can evolve. Facebook doesn't look like it looked like 6 years ago. And so if they can evolve, it's all about attention. It's all about attention. And then it's all about the content. Today, I stood in front of you. The game was created in a way that I had your attention. Big first step. Next was the content. If this talk sucked, I would have blew it. I would have lost you. If it was solid, it would have been solid. If it was great, like it is, I evolve forward with you into the next step. I build more leverage with you, more opportunity to do whatever I want to do with that attention that I've earned, but by first structuring in a way where I got your attention, and then I delivered the content. Attention, delivery. Football's our #1 sport because they won on television, which was the machine that had our attention. That's why the NFL is the #1 sport. It transcended to the medium that grabbed our attention. The #1 sport going forward can be a million different things. As a matter of fact, when you think about drones and 3D behavior, you should bet on extreme sports because they have the most feeling that way, right? Now, you can be a scaredy cat like me and not get off on that kind of stuff, but a lot of people do. And so, people are just very naive. People are not spending any time looking at history to understand the future. Boxing was a great radio sport. So, I don't know. I'm super pumped that my mom and dad had sex at the right moment to give me all this fucking talent. That's what I think right now. All right, who's got the mic? Who's next? D-Rock, make sure you cut that clip. I want to play that.
Hello.
Hey.
How you doing, Mr. Jackson?
How are you, my man?
I know you talked about hiring the A, B, and C players. Are you satisfied with them staying A, B, and C players, or are you looking to mold them into A players?
I'm satisfied with whatever they want. Meaning, I recognize, it's crazy when people are like, we only, that's why I'm jumping on it a little bit, like, we only hire A players. We're like, society needs everything, right? And a company is a replication of that. So, you want the mic? Want to follow up on it? Go ahead, if you got something. So for me, you know what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to build a machine that is ready for anything. For a B player to evolve into an A player check out how many variables there are. I'm building a machine that has a B player evolving into becoming an A player, but that B player doesn't want to be an A player in other ways, right? Like A player in skill, but not A player in ambition, right? So that person might make a lot more money, but might not have as much power, right? B player that stays a B player for life. B player that becomes a C player. A player that started A player and became a C player. Because in business they're a C player, but they may become an A plus player in life because they're doing a great job at home. Like there's just a million things. But in the context of my game, it doesn't matter what I want. It's can I build something that is ready for everything that's going to happen to them. Got it?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. It's just so, it's so narrow and so me to be like, I'm going to make everybody an A player, you know? That's not what it's about. Especially now that people are getting more into work-life balance, especially now that a lot of youngsters take the only money they make to put into experiences instead of buying stuff. There is no 25-year-old now that is obsessed with buying a 60-inch TV instead of a 48. That money is going to Coachella. That money is going to, you know, a $12 juice, which I'm still hung up on. Listen, I walk in every day, I know what I'm paying these kids, they're drinking fucking $43 juices. It blows my mind. Cool. Yeah, let's get him back up here. Let's go to Greg since he hasn't asked one. Right here.
Hey.
Hey.
I'm not asking a corporate culture question.
Great.
I'm writing a book and I'm trying to get like a big author for a forward, and so I'm just interested in like
I got a great idea.
your answer for what's like jab for authors.
You did a really, I would actually give you a different piece of advice.
Okay.
I would go with the right hook model in this way. Book forwards, I think I've figured out how to hack. I'm not kidding. I don't ask for them for myself, but as you can imagine, I get asked every day. And so a lot of people, and I know a lot of people who do. The number one game, how many people, no bullshit, for kicks and giggles, let's have some fun right now. How many people conceivably do you think that could write the forward, meaning like are good enough, and you want them to? Like, what's the crossover? Like, how many people are capable, and your ambition is for them to be one of those people? How many people are there?
Like 5. As like really good would be
Yep.
5, right?
Okay.
And then there's what's the second
No,
question?
you got it. Like, basically what I'm going to tell you to do is, I was hoping it was more than 5, but cool.
Yeah.
Definitely start with those 5. I think you just flat out ask them. You ask them on Twitter, you ask them on email. It is stunning how this game actually plays out. It's just moments in time. And I might even tell you to ask them 3 times.
Right.
I would literally, you know how I always make fun of, like, for the ones that know me, like I always make fun of LinkedIn where people just cold, that's not marketing, that's just spamming. Weirdly, I think book forwarding is like, you can go jab, right hook. I mean, you can build a relationship. You know, like, I mean, the best way to get a book forward from someone is to have already had the relationship to ask. If you're coming in cold, I think all you can do is scale the ask. If you don't have a relationship with those 5 over the next 50, right now, you're only left with going in for the ask. Because you're not going to be able to really jab for a long enough time before you need to throw the right hook, and then you're going to throw the right hook too early, and then that person's going to see that you were full of shit.
Right.
So I actually think you're just better off going for the fucking right hook.
I like it.
And then somebody's just going to be like, yeah, okay. Like, it happens. It's crazy. I'd also look for up-and-coming people that look like the people that are the 5.
Right.
You know? Cool. Questions? You sure? Okay, I guess people are. Let's second rounds. I'm fine. Let's go. Second rounders.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
Do you think Snapchat should buy Meerkat?
I'd like them to, because I put a lot of money into Meerkat. I think that Snapchat is the true only competitor to Meerkat. I don't think it's Periscope. And everybody thinks Periscope's winning.